In the glittering spires of New York City, where fortunes were forged in steel and glass, lived Alexander Harrington, a titan of industry whose name evoked both awe and envy. At 72, with silver hair swept back like the wake of a yacht slicing through ocean waves, Alexander had built an empire from whispers of ambition into a roar of billions. His penthouse atop the Harrington Tower overlooked Central Park, a verdant oasis mocking the barren landscape of his soul. He had everything: yachts that danced on Mediterranean blues, vineyards that bled vintage reds, and a collection of art that could make Michelangelo weep. Yet, love. That elusive phantom had long evaded him, bartered away for boardroom conquests. 3 years prior, at a gala dripping with champagne and hollow laughter, Alexander had met Isabella Voss. She was 32, a vision of ethereal grace with cascading auburn waves that caught the light like autumn leaves in a sun-dappled forest, and emerald eyes that held the quiet depth of ancient forests. Isabella, a struggling artist from the cobblestone streets of Greenwich Village, had painted portraits that captured souls, fleeting moments of vulnerability amid the chaos of creation. She dreamed not of wealth, but of canvases alive with color, of a life painted in strokes of passion rather than pigment. Their union was swift, sealed not by vows of the heart but by the ink of prenuptial agreements. Alexander saw in Isabella a trophy, a bloom to adorn his arm at galas, a softness to temper his sharpening edges. She, ensnared by the promise of stability for her ailing mother and the freedom to pursue her art, whispered "I do" with a heart heavy as lead. The wedding was a spectacle, crystal chandeliers raining light like diamond confetti, guests in bespoke silks toasting to a merger disguised as matrimony. But beneath the fanfare, cracks spiderweb through their foundation. Alexander's gifts arrived like clockwork, diamonds cascading from velvet boxes, gowns from Parisian ateliers, a studio in Tuscany equipped with every brush and hue imaginable. "These will make you happy," he'd say, his voice a gravelly echo of boardroom commands, before retreating to his study, where spreadsheets glowed like cold stars. Isabella accepted them with polite smiles, her fingers tracing the facets of jewels that felt like chains. She hung her paintings on the penthouse walls, strokes of fiery sunsets and whispering winds, but Alexander barely glanced. "Charming," he'd murmur over his evening scotch, eyes fixed on flickering stock tickers. Their conversations dwindled to logistics, the chef's menu for the next fundraiser, the pilot's schedule for Monaco. In bed, they were islands adrift, his touch mechanical, her sighs silent pleas lost in the hum of the city below. Isabella's laughter, once a melody that could coax roses to bloom, faded into echoes. She wandered the vast rooms like a ghost, her sketchpad her only confidant, filling pages with sketches of lovers entwined, hearts unarmored and raw. Nights blurred into a monotonous gray. Alexander, armored in his cynicism, convinced himself this was contentment. Love, he'd long decided, was a fool's currency, squandered in his youth on a fiancée who fled with his rival, leaving scars that time had cauterized into indifference. Affection is transactional, he'd growl to his reflection in the mirrored elevators, a mantra etched deeper than any tattoo. Isabella, though, felt the void like a winter gale. She missed the warmth of shared silences, the brush of fingers without expectation. In quiet moments, she'd trace the lines on Alexander's face, crow's feet from squinting at horizons, furrows from battles won, and wonder if beneath the billionaire's frost lay a man who still dreamed. The turning point came on a rain-lashed October evening, the kind where thunder grumbled like an old man's regrets. Alexander had returned from a transatlantic merger, jet-lagged and irritable, his briefcase heavier than his heart. Isabella was in the solarium, a glass-walled sanctuary overlooking the storm-tossed park, her easel alive with a half-finished portrait, a weathered oak tree, roots entwined with wildflowers, symbolizing resilience and fragility. She hummed a soft lullaby from her childhood, the melody weaving through the patter of rain like threads of forgotten hope. He entered without knocking, his presence announced by the creak of Italian leather shoes. "Isabella," he said, voice clipped as a guillotine, "the Rothschilds' dinner is Friday. Wear the sapphire gown. It suits you." No greeting, no inquiry into her day, just another directive in their scripted life. She turned, brush poised mid-stroke, paint dripping like unshed tears onto the tile. Her eyes, usually veiled in resignation, flickered with something sharper, a quiet fire. "Alexander," she replied, her voice steady as the oak in her painting, "do you ever wonder what it would be like if we weren't this?" He paused, umbrella dripping forgotten at his feet. This? This is security. Stability. What more could you want? More. She set down the brush, stepping closer, the scent of turpentine and rain mingling like a forbidden elixir. "I want you. Not the man who buys silence with emeralds, but the one who sees me." The girl who once danced in meadows until her feet bled blisters of joy. The woman who paints because her heart overflows, not because a check clears. Alexander's jaw tightened, defenses rising like fortress walls. I've given you everything. The world at your feet. Everything but you. Her words hung, fragile as spider silk. Then, with a breath that trembled the air, she pulled a small, creased envelope from her smock pocket. It was sealed with wax, stamped with a florist's rose, innocent, unassuming. This arrived today. From my mother, before she passed last spring. I never opened it. I was waiting for the right moment. He took it, fingers brushing hers, a spark he hadn't felt since youth. The paper whispered as he tore it open, revealing a single sheet in her mother's looping script, faded ink blooming like wildflowers on parchment. My dearest Isabella. If you're reading this, I've slipped into the quiet places beyond the stars. But remember the story I told you by the hearth, about the old oak and the sparrow. The tree, proud and unyielding, thought its shade and strength would hold the bird forever. It showered her with branches for nests, fruits for feasts. Yet the sparrow grew weary, her wings clipped by gifts that weighed like stones. One dawn, she left a note on a leaf, your shadow is vast, but your heart is small. Love isn't in the giving of things, but in the sharing of souls. Fly free, or learn to sing together. The oak wept, not for her flight, but for the song it had silenced. Alexander, if fate has woven your paths, heed this, Isabella's heart is a canvas, not a vault. Fill it with colors of your own making, laughter in the rain, whispers in the dark. Love cannot be bought, it must be borrowed from the stars, one vulnerable moment at a time. Be her oak, but let her teach you to dance in the wind. With eternal warmth. Your mother, Ilara Voss. Alexander's hands shook, the paper crumpling like his resolve. Ilara Voss, a woman he'd met once, her frail form in a hospice bed, eyes bright with unspoken stories. She'd pressed a locket into his palm then, murmuring, guard her light. He'd dismissed it as sentiment, tucking it away like another acquisition. Now, the words pierced him, a scalpel slicing through decades of armor. He saw it all, Isabella's dimming smiles, the canvas's gathering dust, the way she'd curl into herself at night, a wilting bloom denied sunlight. Tears, hot, unbidden, traced paths down his weathered cheeks, the first in half a lifetime. I thought this was enough, he choked, voice fracturing like glass underfoot. I was afraid. Afraid you'd see the fool beneath the fortune, the man who lost his heart long ago. Isabella stepped forward, her hand cupping his face, thumb brushing away the salt of regret. The fool? No, Alexander. You're the men who built worlds. Now build one with me. Not of gold, but of us. In that storm-swept solarium, as lightning etched silver veins across the sky, Alexander pulled her close, not as a possession, but as a partner. His lips found hers, tentative at first, then fervent, a kiss tasting of rain and redemption. The envelope fluttered to the floor, forgotten, as they sank to the cushions, bodies entwining like roots and vines. He traced the curve of her shoulder, memorizing her as if she were his greatest masterpiece. She laughed, truly, freely, her fingers weaving through his silver strands, pulling him into the present. Dawn broke with tentative promises. Alexander canceled the Rothschild dinner, trading tuxedos for paint-splattered jeans. They ventured to Central Park, hand in hand, her sketching him amid falling leaves, him listening as she spun tales of meadows and dreams. He donated his study to her expanding gallery, walls now alive with their shared visions, portraits of tangled hands, sunrises over horizons they'd chased together. No more gifts wrapped in expectation, instead, stolen mornings with coffee brewed by calloused hands, evenings where he'd read her poetry, halting, voice gravelly but earnest, until her eyes sparkled like emeralds in sunlight. Alexander Harrington, the unyielding oak, learned the sparrow's song. Love, he discovered, wasn't a ledger to balance but a flame to tend, fickle, fierce, unforgiving if neglected. In Isabella's gaze, he found not judgment, but grace, a mirror reflecting the boy he'd buried, now resurrected in vulnerability. And so, in the heart of the city that never sleeps, two souls awoke. For in the end, empires crumble, fortunes fade, but a love unbought. It endures, eternal as the stars Ilara had borrowed from. Thank you for watching this story till the end. Sparkles. If it touched your heart, please support us. Thumbs up, give it a like. Speech balloon, share your thoughts in the comments. Bell, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us create more stories that inspire and make you believe.